The central bank's policy to contain inflation is a fantasy. That's not my opinion. That's the opinion of one of the central bank's own policymakers. Let's get started. Inflation is at the highest point in more than 40 years, and the Fed only started raising rates last month. And according to their own plan, despite all the noise being made about bigger rate hikes, the Fed funds rate would reach no higher than 2.5% by the end of this year. According to one Federal Reserve Bank president, that's not near enough. Where does he think rates should be? And what would happen to the economy if they get there? It wasn't until the end of November 2021 when it was reported that Fed Chairman Jerome Powell retires the word transitory in describing inflation. Since then, the Fed has embraced a formal rate tightening regime. But even so, experts, including the Fed's own Mr. Bullard, suggest the central bank still seems reluctant to do the dirty work necessary to knock down inflation. Bullard thinks defeating inflation with neutral interest rates is a fairy tale. In a recent interview with the Financial Times, he said, "There's a bit of a fantasy, I think, in current policy in central banks. Neutral is not putting downward pressure on inflation. It's just ceasing to put upward pressure on inflation." Bullard went on to suggest that the Fed's approach to fighting inflation could be jeopardizing the central bank's credibility. If people get the idea that the Fed's not going to do the right thing and not going to keep inflation under control, then you have to gain credibility by actually doing things that show them that you are serious. And what rate level does Bullard think the Fed should have in its sights? That would be 3.5% by year's end. But the federal funds rate has been 3.5% or higher in only 2.5 of the last 20 years. Bullard thinks single rate increases of 75 basis points should be up for consideration as well. But the Fed rarely hikes rates in increments greater than 25 basis points. The last time it raised rates by even 50 basis points was all the way back in 2000. Is James Bullard's alarm sounding? Changing minds at the Fed? Or is the relentless nature of inflation starting to make believers out of Fed policymakers? Maybe both. At a recent panel discussion in April, Fed Chairman Powell said 50 basis points will be on the table for the May meeting. Whether the Fed eventually moves above neutral and reaches the 3.5% level favored by Bullard by the end of 2022 remains to be seen. I think retirement savers should consider the possibility that rate hikes could be bigger moving forward, and what that might mean for the economy as well as their own financial holdings. That's why I encourage you to schedule a one-on-one web conference with our education team at AugustaPreciousMetals.com.
Hey guys, Joe Montana here with my man Devlin Steele. He and his team at Augusta Precious Metals are constantly putting out new information to keep you ahead of the game. Click subscribe now and hit the notification bell to stay up to date. You'll be glad you did.